Henry Ford gets punked in court, a 14-year-old turns Horch into Audi, the first ever Ferrari, and an all-new Barbie Jeep. All that and so much more coming your way right now.
It's time to cruise the highways and byways of the auto industry's past, present, and future. Join us in exploring the vehicles, people, events, and places that have shaped the way we move. This is the Drive History Podcast.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Drive History Podcast. This is Brian Corey, joined, per usual, by Jordan Stead.
Hey.
This episode, we're running down automotive history for May 7th through the 13th, but we're going to get started with a little bit of traveling. I personally was just in New Orleans, and it's great for the music and the food. I'm not going to lie, not that excellent for the cars, at least on this trip. You, on the other hand, had a completely different experience.
Yeah, so I was in London last week for work for the old JOB, and I'm a producer and director in my day job, and
No
I was
biggie.
over there, not that big of a biggie, but I was over there producing a shoot, and, usually when it's work travel, right? You really kind of don't get any time to yourself, but I got maybe 4 hours of jet-lagged freedom to myself one day, and I always keep a camera on me. And so I went out and about, and I did a little car spotting in London. And man, I've got some observations for you, and I'm curious to hear how these compare to your New Orleans experience.
Lay it on me.
Okay. So the first thing is the opulence level in London is unreal. It seems like where I'm from is like Seattle. I grew up in Seattle, and Seattle exploded as a tech hub and is rising costs of living, and it's an expensive big metropolitan city now. And I feel like every time I go to Seattle from Bellingham, where I live currently, I'm like, God, how do all these people afford these $150,000 cars everywhere? Well, in London, let me tell you, the Corollas are actually Bentleys. I'm not kidding you. I saw more Bentleys and more Rolls Royces in 4 hours than I've seen in my entire life. I was walking through this one neighborhood near the Dorchester, which is an incredibly expensive hotel in London, which I guess does explain some of this. And I was seeing multiple brand new Rolls Royce Phantoms with chauffeurs and people being driven in the backseat just in this neighborhood constantly. What an incredible car, by the way. A Rolls Royce Phantom is just like the imposing street cred that thing has. It's
so big.
It's incredible. It's huge.
Yeah.
And they make an extended version of it too, by the way. I learned that because I immediately went to Google after I was walking around to figure out how much these things cost. And they're starting at $500,000, by the way. The other big thing that I noticed was there were virtually no crossovers on the road.
Small cars and fancy cars.
And wagons.
And
that's no surprise. We all know that UK, Europe, they all love their wagons. But what was interesting is the SUVs that were on the road were only Porsche Macans and Cayennes. That's it.
No Land Rovers? I feel like that's a...
Oh, you're right.
Still be
I saw
a thing
a couple
over
Land
there.
Rovers. But the amount of Macans and Cayennes was staggering. It was like seeing a Honda Civic around here. And the third most interesting part about this was, maybe this is a little hyperbolic, there were no damaged cars anywhere. As I was walking the street looking at cars parked along the side of the road, nothing was clapped out. Nothing was like dented up and, with half a bumper hanging off of it. Yeah, I thought that was really interesting.
I wonder what the insurance game is like over there. One scratch, your car's totaled. Somehow somebody's making money off that.
Yeah.
Everybody just gets a new car. That's really interesting. I haven't spent a lot of time in the UK, so I can't speak to your experiences. I am going there this summer, and so I'll give you my dish on it. But completely opposite in New Orleans, there's a lot of cars that are clapped out and have seen better days. The thing that was actually really interesting to me being in New Orleans is we took a lot of Ubers. And here, when you call an Uber, it's usually like a sedan or a small SUV or something like that. People are driving like F-350s as their Uber truck, like vehicle. So I'm just getting picked up in this dually diesel, driving through the French Quarter, rolling coal. So yeah, slightly different. However, my cousin who I was with, he did see a Cybertruck on the streets of New Orleans, and I've yet to see one of those.
I haven't seen one in person either.
Out of all the cars that you saw there, is there anything that stood out?
I saw a new Audi RS6, which we also have in North America. And every time I see one, I'm just like, God, it's perfect. It's a perfect vehicle. It's so beautiful. It's so imposing. What else did I see, though? I saw some Aston Martins. I saw the new VW ID Buzz panel van.
Yeah, that's my new dream car, I think. I'm very excited for that to come to the States. I don't know if we're getting the panel version. I'm sure there will be a variation of it, but I do know we're getting the 7-passenger, whereas that's not being sold in Europe, I believe.
Yeah, it was cool. It was like a white and blue two-tone type thing. And if you go to my Instagram, you can see some of the stuff I shot when I was just walking around. It's Jordan B. Stead on Instagram. But what else? What else did I see that was cool? Just a bunch of like weird, like fun Skoda and Cupra cars, which we don't get here. Some Peugeots.
It's a whole different auto industry over there.
Totally. Yeah. And this goes into our news of the day a little bit. This is the one downside of cars in the UK. Nothing is in a cool color at all.
Black, silver.
Yeah, and like maybe a dark blue if you're really risky.
How quaint. Yeah, I saw what you're about to share, and all I have to say to preface this is, do you remember when Bic came out with Bic for Her, the pen company? It was the pens for her, and they were just pink pens. So I don't know if that's where this is going, but
you may be right. And the big news this week, which is really not big news, but I thought it'd be fun to bring up, is that the 2024 Jeep Gladiator just added this very vibrant Tuscadero pink paint option. So her Bic, my Bic, whatever. It's that version, but Jeep Gladiator style. And why is this news? It's really not news, but like I'm saying, in London and really in the US, cool colors just aren't really a thing on most cars anymore. And even if they are, they're few and far between, and they're incredibly expensive. It's only $900, which I thought was actually very cheap for an additional paint option on a car.
Custom paint can be a lot these days. But that's the deal. You either get black, white, or silver, and then you have to pay $1,000 or more to get anything else.
This color was previously on the Wrangler in 2021, which I didn't know, but that's cool. 30,000 people ordered that color on the 2021 Wrangler. That blows my mind.
Hey, that's out of 32,000 Wranglers sold that year.
Hey, I like that. I like those odds. Obviously, Jeep people know something that we don't know. So,
if everybody orders a special edition, it's not special anymore. Just a heads up. But I love the name Tuscadero Pink. Yeah. The Gladiator has come a long way since 1000 BC.
That's true. This is true. Also, what are a couple of your favorite, like right off the top of your head, really wild paint color cars? The one that comes to mind for me is the lime green Toyota Tacomas and 4Runners of the last gen.
Oh yeah, they're like almost like a sheen on them. They just seem like metal. Yeah, those are cool. Being more of a classic car guy, my mind goes directly to a lot of the muscle cars of the 60s and 70s. Plum Crazy. Mm-hmm. Mopar was doing a lot. There's like one car that stands out in particular from I can't remember if it was like a Plymouth Barracuda or Dodge Charger, and it had every paint sample on the same car like in a row, and it was like 30 different options. Like you used to have so many options to
That's
get
cool.
a car, and and it was just like their pick which car or which color you want on your new car, and you could actually see it on the car. And then I feel like a lot of people think like cars from the 20s and 30s were all just black, but there was so much color happening, like green wheels and like dark reds and really elegant, elaborate color schemes, like the creams and the dark purples, and just There's some good ones out there. Color says a lot about your car or about who you are. Yeah,
totally. By the way, Plum Crazy is still a paint code for Mopar. You can get like
totally
Hellcats and Plum Crazy.
Give it to him. I'm getting a Plum Crazy Hellcat and a Tuscadero pink Jeep.
Perfect for you and Marley.
Yeah.
His and hers.
His and hers.
Bic, her Bic. Perfect.
We figured it out.
That's right. It's all just marketing.
Let's dive into a little bit of history, shall we?
Let's do it. May 7th. What do you got for me?
1990. Production of the Lamborghini Countach ends. The Countach, as we all know, was a real symbol of the 1980s. Excess and opulence. I think I remember best from the movie that we talked about last week, the Cannonball Run. Pretty sure that was a Lamborghini Countach, but I might be mistaken that it was a Diablo, but I'm not entirely sure. But I'm going to believe that it was a Countach, white with the little black side markers. Again, that car ended production right after Chrysler bought Lamborghini, and then they went into development of the Diablo. May 7th, 2016, the first death caused by autopilot, and I'm going to say allegedly because I don't want to get arrested or something for making things up. But according to reports, a Tesla Model S slammed into a truck near Williston, Florida, while its autopilot function was engaged, and the impact resulted in the death of the driver of that Tesla, Joshua Brown, becoming the first person to die while using an autopilot feature. Tesla declined to comment on the accident. However, they went on to say that its system does not allow the driver to abdicate responsibility. Yet, crash reports found that the driver had only had his hands on the wheel for 1 minute of the previous 37 minutes of driving.
Oh my, wow.
So, yeah, I would say that they were less than responsible. One other thing that I was reading about this is he set the autopilot to like 75 in a 55 mile per hour zone. According to testing, he could have seen the truck that he hit at least 7 seconds before he hit it, but just like was not paying attention at all. So
crazy.
We've probably come a long way since 2016 in terms of autopilot, but it's still sketchy, man.
Yeah. Have you ever been in a Tesla with autopilot?
Yeah, my wife's uncle has one and he demonstrated it for me, but just on a city road going 20 miles an hour or 25 miles an hour or something like that. It's a trip.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was so autonomous. I guess it isn't because it killed somebody, allegedly. But at the same time, like right. 37 minutes, you can just let that thing rip. I always think about lane keep, in other cars where it'll beep at you after 10 seconds of having your hand off the wheel. Like to go 36 minutes or 37 minutes and it's not even saying anything until it just plows you into a wall is pretty insane.
All those alert systems came out of stuff like this happening. And also it might have been one of those things which is like, okay, you just have to touch the wheel for like 1 second every minute or something. And it's just like, here's the beep and just like touches the wheel and it's not doing nothing. Right. I don't know. Yeah.
I'm good, man. I'm like so good on that. I do not need to do that. I can't even think of a time when I'd want to use that. Even on a long and arduous road trip, I don't think I would want to engage that feature.
Oh, it's terrifying.
And I certainly wouldn't spend $12,000 on it, but shout out to all you listeners who maybe have.
Yeah, take me for a ride. Let's both sit in the back seat.
They're not taking you anywhere. The car is taking them for a ride.
Right. On to some more legal battles. May 8th, Yeah. This is actually really interesting. And I know I love like old car facts. And so I hope you get a kick out of this because I don't think a lot of people realize in the early days of the automobile, every car company had to pay a royalty to one guy, George Selden, who filed for a patent for the automobile on May 8th, 1879. That patent wouldn't be granted until 1895. But again, once he got that, he could just collect from every automaker. And this was a time when like there was tons and tons of startups. Everybody wanted to like get in on the game. And he was like, give me $1 for everyone that you're making. Of course, they're only making like $300 a year. And don't quote me on those figures, but it's something like that. It's hard to imagine that today.
Talk about a hot boy move, just like last episode. It's like patenting water. Hey, by the way, I know you can't have that glass of water. You're gonna have to pay me $1. Like that's incredible.
Also, water is so expensive in New Orleans. Like, just throwing that out there. But it was, of course, Henry Ford who quote unquote came to the rescue on saving the auto industry. He had tried to get into Selden's manufacturing group and was denied just because some previous investors didn't like him. And he said, screw it, started building cars anyway. Selden took Henry Ford to court. He initially lost, but eventually won on appeal and got the whole thing thrown out. And so car companies no longer had to pay a royalty. If somehow that had held on, we would not be where we are today in automotive technology or design or style or anything.
Yeah, that's another one of those revisionist history things where if you were to imagine a world where this continued to be what it was, how bizarre and different things would be.
May 8th, 1996, the Dodge Viper GTS makes its debut, featuring the iconic double bubble roof and a more refined design compared to its predecessor, the Viper RT10. This version of the Viper would become a symbol of American muscle and high performance throughout the later part of the 90s. I can't believe that they've ceased production of the Viper altogether, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree. It does have the nameplate that everybody knows, and it's such an iconic car in so many ways. I'm amazed it hasn't made a return, and I bet you anything there's a really dumb electric version of the Viper coming.
The E-Viper. It's only going to be driven by E-Vapors.
It's bizarre to think about how cool that car is and how they're like, nah, okay, we're just done with it. Like there's no recourse here. But I don't know, man. I think every single nameplate is going to be brought back, especially in the electrification world. I think we're going to be scraping the bottom of the barrel in a couple of years to continue trying to tap into the nostalgia of old brands or models or whatever just to sell cars. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Viper came back as something electric, or who knows, maybe it'll come back as a panel van. I don't know.
Either way, it's going to bite you.
This is true.
May 9th, 2002, Toyota officially announces the discontinuation of the Toyota Supra in Japan. It ends at the Mark IV. This marked the end of the era for a beloved sports car that gained a lot of significant following for its performance, particularly in the tuning community. Of course, we all know the Supra came back in 2019 as part of a collaboration with BMW. And I actually didn't know that until you had mentioned it. I think on our very first episode, we talked about this briefly. Do you know how that partnership came to be?
I don't, but I know the internet joke, which is that the new Supra is not a Toyota, it's a BMW. Because basically everything under the skin is BMW, which I think it's cool. I'm sure there's a lot of purists out there that don't like it, but the way I look at this kind of thing is it wouldn't exist if they didn't work together on this. You know what I mean? Like True. Toyota was not going to bring back the Supra without BMW's help or whatever. And so to me, it's a win because we get it back. And you know what? It's not an electric panel van, so we win again.
But I want an electric panel van.
Yeah. This is a huge, huge moment in modern-ish car history, right? The Supra is such an iconic vehicle. Again, just like the RX-7, as we were discussing in the last episode, I always forget that the Supra was still around in 2002. It feels like a car that disappeared in the late 90s to me. And I mean, I know that's only a couple of years, but for some reason, the year 2000 for me feels so vastly different from 1999 in my head that sometimes I just have this Mandela effect of like what really happened and when of that time.
Truth.
May 9th, what do we got?
1992. The Subaru Impreza made its official debut in Japan, offering a compact and versatile platform. The Impreza would go on to achieve fame in rally racing, particularly in the World Rally Championship. At the museum I work at, there's, I think, two on display, one wearing its rally livery, and another one that's just like almost bone stock, but has some sweet wheels on it.
Impreza is the car that went from the coolest thing to the least cool thing over the course of its life cycle at Subaru.
You think so?
Totally. Like those rally models of the 90s to what an Impreza is now is so uncool. They're fine, good cars, right? But like just the difference of what they stood for in the 90s versus the 2020s is so vastly different.
No, that's fair. It is definitely more of a family sedan sort of car these days. May 10th, 1904, Audi is founded, but it wasn't yet called Audi. It was originally founded by August Horch in Germany under the name Horch and Company Motor Wagon Work, which I love.
Motorwagenwerk, you mean?
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
The company had some success, but there was some fallout in the leadership, and August Horch ended up leaving his own company just to go on to start another one, which he blatantly called August Horch Automobile Work. Let's hear that one.
Automobile Work.
Perfect. Oh, I love it. I love it. But of course, a court battle soon erupted over the name Horch, and he ended up being forced to change it. And interestingly, so he calls the board to like one of his partner's houses, and they're debating over what to call it. And his partner's like 14-year-old son is doing his Latin homework in the corner, and he's like, "Daddy, I have a suggestion." And he comes up with Audi, which is the Latin term for to listen, and Horch in German is to listen. So now you know where the name came from.
Okay. This isn't cool.
What? That a 14-year-old kid doing his Latin homework named Audi?
Yeah. This is not cool at all. This is the dumbest origin story ever. I'm actually like really sad about this. What is going on here? Is this real? Is this fiction?
It's real deal.
By the way, dear listener, we often like to keep you on your toes. You know, who knows what we're saying is real?
It's real.
Yeah, no, you're right. I guess it is real, but that is really not cool. Wow.
Yeah, weird turn of events there. But you could be driving around in a Horch A6.
Yeah, fair.
Interesting, like in the 30s, Audi, Horch, and two other companies all combined, and that's why you get the 4 rings.
Oh, okay. That's cooler. See, that's cool. That's kind of cool. But yeah, listen based off some kid's homework is the least cool shit. I can't get over that, man. This sucks. That just like kind of ruined my afternoon.
Nobody wants an Audi anymore.
I guess not.
But you want to listen to an Audi, don't you?
Oh, God. Moving on, 2012.
Carroll Shelby dies. We don't have to get into a whole big thing about him, but we've talked to him quite a bit on this podcast, but I do have to give a shout out.
For sure. And I swear to God, he dies every episode. We've only been doing this podcast for 13 weeks now, and I swear to God we've had this fact like 5 different times.
His birthday, the first time he won a race, then he died.
True.
But I mean, you got to give him credit. We have a lot of cool cars to thank him for.
For sure. May 11th, what do we got?
1947, Ferrari debuts its first car, the Ferrari 125 Sport, at the Placenza Racing Circuit. Get this, it featured a 1.5-liter V12 that produced 118 horsepower, giving it a top speed of 112 miles per hour. I'm not a mechanical person, but just reading those numbers, I'm like, what is going on here?
Yeah, there's a lot of numbers in that sentence. Let's roll that back for a second. It featured a 1.5-liter V12 that produced 118 horsepower, pushing it to 112 miles an hour. Again, not so cool, but for the time, let's do it.
At least he was thinking outside the box then. And I've actually seen this car. It's at the Peterson Museum, and it's gorgeous. And the fact that it still exists, I think it was one of 2 that they built in that year. It's a really phenomenal looking car. I mean, it's so simple, so iconic looking. It still has the Ferrari badge, the prancing horse on the front. And it stayed. I feel like Ferrari has remained more true to its like brand origins than like Lamborghini, for example. Anyway, they didn't win that first race. That first big win came at the 24 Hours of Rome in 1948.
Okay. It's crazy to think that in 1947, a V12 1.5 liter was generating basically 40-ish less horsepower than a 1995 Miata did with a 1.6 four-banger. Isn't that crazy?
It's wild.
Yeah, like a Miata would just stomp that thing into the earth.
That would be a fun race to watch. I'd watch it.
Yeah. It would be so loud and with so little speed.
Right.
It's awesome.
2000. Chrysler announced that the Plymouth brand would be discontinued by the end of the year. Plymouth, of course, had been a major player in the auto industry since the 1920s, relying heavily on affordability, yet it was relatively innovative. Right at the end there, as you so kindly reminded us, Jordan, it had the Plymouth Prowler. One of those cars that we do talk about sometimes too. And it's still a poster car for me. Like kind of boring under the hood, but iconic on the wall.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to describe it. Poster, like literally, it's only on the wall, and you probably shouldn't drive it. You'll just look at it and appreciate it more. But what do I know? Never driven one, never been in one. So if you have a Prowler and you're anywhere near Washington State, you want to make a little road trip, please show us how awesome it is. Take us out.
May 12th, 1988, the Ford Probe debuted. And the Probe on its own, I feel like it's like starting to get this like cult following, or maybe it's had one for a while. But what I didn't know was that it was actually designed to be the next Mustang after the Fox body. And it wasn't going to have a V8. It wasn't going to be rear-wheel drive. And they just got so much pushback internally. Like the higher-ups were like, yeah, we're going to do this. Make the Probe the next Mustang and all this. And internally, I think from like a lower ground level, people are just like, no, there's no way. You're ruining like an American icon. And I agree with them. So thankfully that didn't happen.
Yeah, I agree. 100%.
10 years later, the Toyota Prius debuted and kind of started the hybrid craze. And I'm still more team hybrid than team electric. So we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, let's leave it at that because that's a whole episode within itself. But it's amazing how you still see a lot of those 98 Priuses around, and they're just like workhorses. People love those things.
Oh, for sure. I feel like you can get 250,000 miles out of them and they're still getting, 35 miles per gallon.
Yeah. I really like the dash display in the old Priuses, by the way. Like the dash that shows all like the almost like MS-DOS style green kind of like power is going to the wheels, and there's like an arrow pointing, and then when you hit the brakes, it goes back. I don't know. I just kind of like it. I've always kind of thought it was cool. It aged well.
I forgot about that. Yeah, for sure. I wonder if they have that in the new Prius. Also, the new Priuses are pretty sick.
It's hot, dude. I know. Yeah. I can't believe I'd ever say that, but it is hot. I would drive it, and the other day I was looking, I saw a photo of one like slammed out on some really nice wheels online, and I was like, man, this is cool. This is very cool looking.
Right? Yeah, they did a good job on that. I feel like they had to make it cool, or else Prius was going to go away.
Yeah. It's also pretty hard to make a original Prius less cool looking, in my opinion. So they kind of only could go upward, really.
Truth.
Yeah, they understood the assignment.
May 13th, 1975, Richard Hollingshead, the creator of the drive-in movie theater, dies. He opened the first one in 1933 in Camden, New Jersey. What was the last movie you saw at a drive-in?
Dang, that's a really great question. I'm not sure. What about you?
Yeah, we have one out near Oak Harbor, but I don't think I've been there for quite some time. I want to say it was like Jurassic Park in like the 90s, like with my parents or something.
Oh, just kidding. I don't remember the movie, but in Fremont, a neighborhood in Seattle, they have outdoor movies in the summer against the side of this building. And I used to go a lot, but that was probably like 10 plus years ago. It was always like 80s movies and stuff. I feel like the last thing I maybe saw was like a Pixar movie. I feel like that's a very drive-in movie friendly style thing to project on the side of a building.
And we never got to live through the days of like stuffing all your friends in the trunk and paying the quarter to get in. And
so cool. I would love that.
Let's bring back the drive-in.
It's not a bad idea. Honestly, it's, nostalgia sells. And I feel like there's something there. You could market something there. Because look, theaters are not what people really go and do a whole lot anymore, or at least as much as they used to, right? So the drive-in is kind of like a 2.0 almost of, well, we don't need to go to the theater indoors because our TV at home is already great and we could just stream stuff from our couch. But the drive-in offers this actually unique experience to something that you wouldn't be able to do at your own house necessarily. So somebody do it. That sounds cool. We should open a drive-in movie theater, dude.
I'm not opposed. Do you have like 2 acres that we can borrow?
No, but the more I think about it, it's really kind of a low overhead business, right?
It depends on where you're at. I mean, land is expensive. If you tried to buy an acre here to park a bunch of cars on.
Yeah.
Although, once you have that, you're kind of just rolling in it as long as you got a good concession.
That's true, yeah. Concession and a Netflix subscription and a projector, and you're set up.
Actually, the pop-up drive-in is not a bad idea. Like, you could probably roll around town, get a big blow-up screen,
Totally. Like, what about like South by Southwest or like a film festival that does like an outdoor pop-up drive-in movie? We're just giving away $1 billion.
Yeah, what are we doing?
I don't know.
Trademark.
I feel like that happens every episode. Yeah. We're trying to like trademark great ideas, and people are probably making millions off of our ideas already here. I don't know. Anyway, be nice, people. Give us a cut if you really take one of these things and it takes off.
For real. May 13th, 1981, the DeLorean DMC-12 officially launches. I think it's best known for its stainless steel body, the gull-wing doors, and of course, being in that movie, Back to the Future.
Yeah, we don't need paint where we're going.
Oh, I like that. That should be their slogan when they bring it back.
Totally. Again, throwing out $1 million ad campaign line right
there. And maybe a little hint that we might have a guest on in the near future that is closely tied to the DeLorean.
Ooh.
Dun, dun, dun.
Love it. What do we have on listener mail this week?
Guys, I recently discovered your site and got the emails, but never had the chance to listen. In a recent 5-hour drive, I played your podcast and really enjoyed. Thank you so much.
Hey.
You covered a part of the Bugatti V16. I suggest as a topic that you cover the Cadillac V16 introduced in 1929 during the Depression. Cadillac stole an engineer from Peerless or Packard and was able to launch the 16. Cadillac never said anything about the V16 until its launch. Very interesting story. Also, Cadillac built a very impressive V16 1,000 horsepower in 2000 as a prototype. Whoa, I did not know that.
Yeah, and I was thinking that myself, and I thought, what is this? He's right. It was a concept car developed and presented in 2003. It had an aluminum 32-valve V16 engine, 13.6 liters. And it was exclusive to this car, which is called the Cadillac 16, and it was based off the GM generation, I guess the 4LS architecture. It had a 4-speed auto transmission, which sounds really horrible to drive with, and it had an interesting kind of ahead of its time technology of displacement on demand. So it could shut down its valves to either a V12 or a V8, which is interesting. So, just in case you wanted to save a couple extra miles per gallon, you could shut down your V16 to a V12. But actually, crazy enough, the V16 was allegedly capable of 16.6 miles per gallon under normal conditions. And it was said to produce a minimum of 1,000 brake horsepower and at least 1,000 pound-feet of torque using 0 forced induction. So totally naturally aspirated.
Dang.
Yeah.
What did you say the liters was? 13 something?
13.6 liters.
So that's interesting. So that first Ferrari,
29 cubic inches.
That first Ferrari was 1.5 liter V12.
Yeah.
And this is a 13 liter V16. Yes. We've come a little ways.
This thing looks incredibly cool, by the way. This thing looks a lot like the Cadillac, I believe it's called the Lyric or whatever, the brand new conceptual, wild, high-tech Cadillac is that just came out or was announced a couple months ago. I can see the DNA from 2003 and how that's informed even like 20-something years later, this new design. It's really quite a beautiful car. It's very Cadillac looking, but it's incredibly wide. It's got that big, imposing Rolls-Royce-y kind of feel. It's got the same thing with the tail and this long sort of swoopy body, very, very luxurious, but it's kind of badass.
It's got the side opening hood too. So like both sides open up, which is very reminiscent of the original Cadillac V16s and from the 30s. So they hit all the bases here. I wonder why it never came to production.
I didn't even read far enough ahead here. This is interesting that I just compared it to the Lyric, which is not what the new one is called. Excuse me. I take that back. An exclusive Cadillac Halo model descended from the 16 concept lineage was confirmed in March 2020 with the Cadillac Celestique. Celestique? Yeah, an ultra-luxury four-door electric flagship sedan set to begin production in 2023. I guess I was right there in terms of not the name, but the idea that this was informing something even 20 years later in terms of design.
Totally.
So that's pretty cool.
You do see the influence in it looking at the two side by side.
It's got that timeless look to it.
Interesting enough, this came out in 2003. Yeah. That was the same time that all these retro cars were coming out, and there's a little bit of like that neoclassical influence here, yes. But it also has this like futuristic feel to it for sure. Mm-hmm. It's really unique.
By the way, last point on it, it had a Cadillac logo carved out of solid crystal in the steering wheel. So just in case you needed to option that in or whatever, you've got it. And so that we really end this episode just as we began it, which is just insane opulence and crystal logos and chauffeurs and whatever else. And that's really just the lifestyle that Brian and I live anyway. So it makes sense that we would be starting and ending this episode with that kind of thing.
Yeah. And thanks to Rich.
That's right. Yes. Thank you, Rich, for reminding us of the vehicles that we have in our own garage.
You can help put them there, everybody. Just hit that Venmo at Automotive History.
Where can the people come if they want to yell at us or fan mail us or whatever?
If you want to be like Rich, hit us up at contact@carsandcopymedia.com. You can currently find us on all of the This Day in Automotive History social media channels, but perhaps we'll be launching some new ones in the near future to give you a direct line of access to Jordan.
Oh, and love it.
And of course, be sure to rate, subscribe, and mostly just listen and share. We're growing and we're having a lot of fun doing this, and we would love to get some love from you guys just to keep us in the game.
Yes. Appreciate you. Thank you all for listening.
Until then, drive history every day.
Bye.